before coming here or coming in this training, I have this fear when it comes to the issue of HIV, and I have this doubt in my mind if I can contribute in the advocacy. But as a church worker and as a human myself, I was challenged first to appreciate and love more, even more, the people living with HIV, and next to live the advocacy, and third is to embrace the beauty of creation and its flaws.
In 2010, I was driving to work and listening to the radio, and the announcer said the highest incidence of HIV was in Quezon City, and I was struck by that statement at the time dahil Quezon City is the location of the main offices of so many of the member churches, not to mention the headquarters of the National Council of Churches. So I thought about that for several days until at our executive staff meeting, I proposed that NCCP take on the issue of HIV, AIDS. At the time, it was a very modest plan, simply to educate.
Because before I was taught on HIV/AIDS coming from the Department of Health, their curriculum, and we have this difficulty in translating this input to the church. But the moment that I have encountered the curriculum by Innerella using SAVE, oh my goodness. As a Christian educator, this curriculum it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's informative, and indeed it fits not only the church but even the community as a whole. During youth camps, we have these youth conferences in Decembers and summer youth camps. I'm always invited to deliver SAVE trainings, do biblical theological reflection on human sexuality, and reading the Bible in the lens of the LGBTQI community. Through SAVE, I traveled Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, the whole country, in spreading this good news, this gospel. Mga babaylan sa mga bukid at pagawaan, kinikitil na sumpa ng nakaraan, nagbabangon ng mga babaylan.
I think it's quite relevant, especially for the Protestant and alternative Catholic blocs, the churches that are with NCCP and 3KP, because these are churches that readily talk about sexuality. These are churches that know the issue of sexuality as an issue of human dignity and human rights. So it's pretty much central. So you can't talk about poverty or persecution and not talk about sexuality and HIV.
The work of gender and sexuality in the Philippines might be popular, but it is popular only because it is much needed at this time, in this particular time in history where everything is moving. We're making noise in legislation, in judiciary. and the mass movements. So because this is being picked up, I think it's very important that institutions like the National Council of Churches or my own institution, the Union Theological Seminary, picks this up and kind of like strike while the iron is hot.
We still have a long way to go in terms of arriving at convergences on the question of human sexuality as it relates to this whole notion of sin. I hope someday, one day, that as they are so passionate about the discussion on human sexuality, pros and cons, so will they be as passionate on the questions of extrajudicial killings and so many other forms of injustices. Especially with EJ case, we're talking about life here.
Mga babangon ng mga babaylan sa mga bukid at pagawaan, kinikitil ng sumpa ng nakaraan, nagbabangon ng mga babaylan.
There was this warm response from the church leaders in the campaign, in joining the campaign. This was shown in the willingness to become poster boys and girls in the campaign for HIV testing, and I think that's very crucial because it's a leadership by example.
Okay, I was tested during the HIV conference in South Africa, and I was really nervous during the time. I think it is important for people, clergy, and members in general to know their status, and so they can really take care of themselves and become part of the program and like raising the awareness of people.
Oh yes, I'm sure I was not the only one bashed when I had my poster posted on the internet, and in fact it was quite a traumatic experience for me. Our colleagues here at the NCCP said we should make a statement or react to those, but I chose not to because at least the bottom line was they were talking about it. The sad part was that those who bashed were people belonging to churches. It just goes to show how much more we need to work on in terms of making the churches more understanding, more aware.
Bangon ng mga babaylan sa mga bukid at pagawaan, kinikitil ng sumpa ng nakaraan, nagbabangon ng mga babaylan.
The question and the issue will rest much on the younger generation. They will have to work it out. Each generation will have to find their place in society. Those ahead can only go so far. Each generation is a product of their time, so it is said. But each generation will also have to contend with the issues that they face.
It is an opportunity for us as a church to educate our people, and we start educating our children and our youth. And that moment, we hope that in the near future, churches here in the Philippines can indeed create safe spaces and communities and churches for people living with HIV and AIDS. And this is one way also of educating our youth in protecting themselves. Our youths, our men, our women, are now infected. The body of Christ is infected with the virus of HIV. Through SAVE, we can save the lives of our youth and the future generation.
So far, we have some Lutheran leaders who are saying, you know what, we're starting the HIV and AIDS advocacy in our parish. The CPBC, the Convention of Baptist Churches in the Philippines, they prayed an ecumenical prayer during one of their worships, which included HIV and AIDS, gender justice, education for all, the ecumenical arena is a very potent place to see where these advocacies can go. It's a place to stretch people's ideas. We're hoping that there will be a united, big, collective step forward for the ecumenical youth.
Nagbabalik